I want this mic to stay still. All right. Let's do another one. This one hits pretty close to home because it's was recorded right over Atlantic City, about 2 miles north of where we are. There is the Atlantic City Airport, which is home to the F-177th, I believe, Air Force, and it's got a bunch of F-16s there, and they cover the New York, Philly, Baltimore, and some of DC area. So we have an Air Force in the location. We have an Air Force veteran that's local that recorded these clips. I believe there was a second party that recorded. There was 2 clips from the Air Force veteran and then one other third clip from somebody else that was local. And in the video, when I was listening to it, you can hear that they were talking to each other. So they were like probably neighbors. Be good if I can find out who it actually was. So that way I could maybe talk to them a little bit and just, get a little bit more detail. But let's get into the details of the video itself. So I'm going to play what actually was just raw recorded, so we can see and kind of talk about what I'm seeing right out of this. So first off, it's a really bright object. It's actually being overexposed by the camera, so there's some data probably being lost in it, where it's just because it's so bright. But it's really fascinating that it is so bright against the blue sky. So this thing is seriously emitting photons. So whatever this object is doing, and this is the second clip, whatever this object is doing, while it's doing it, it's emitting quite a bit of electromagnetic radiation. And right here you can see that it's going behind clouds. So that kind of gives an idea of altitude. We can actually go and look up what the ceiling height yesterday was, so we can get an idea of altitude, and maybe we can actually come up with a size estimate for what this thing is. My gut's telling me this thing is probably bigger than a school bus, maybe 18-wheeler size. It's pretty big. There it is shining through the clouds. So this is emitting a lot of radiation. And when I say radiation, I mean at least electromagnetic, not necessarily gamma or X-rays. It's emitting photons because the cameras are designed, the sensors are designed to pick up photons that are vibrating in the frequency of the visual spectrum, and that's what we're catching here. Here's the third clip. I believe this was a second person, maybe in 1 yard over. It's a little less overexposed, so you get more detail in it, which actually is a benefit for us in doing this analysis. You can see in the middle of it, it's a little bit darker, and in the dead center of it, there's an object in there, and we're going to see that when we dig into the analysis of it as we get a little closer. All right, so what I did here for the next clips, regular thing, right? So I added some stability to it, so I did tracking. And that's actually a good frame to stop on. And I messed a lot with the colors to try to just make sure that we're able to see everything that we're able to see. So because everything is so bright in here, I brought down the overall gamma of the entirety of the video. So you can see that it almost looks like a night sky at this point. And the goal is to try to reduce the amount of light, or the amount of represented light coming out of the hot spots within the object. So in this first clip, this is probably the best thing the best frame we're gonna get out of it, where you can see the front of it and the back of it are emitting more light than the center. And there's something, almost looks like an eye, right? In the center, there's something dark going on in here, and it's a little bit darker out to the sides. Now cameras on phones are notorious for creating all of this, makes it look grainy, and grain probably isn't the right term for it, but the grain is very large, and that has a lot to do with the actual compression algorithms that are used by the phones to record. So that's more of a software artifact than it is of a hardware artifact. So, and this is where I was asking before, when people were recording on your iPhone like 14, 15, if you can do this in ProRes RAW, we would get a lot more information in here and we'd see more detail. But you can see, here's the second clip, and it's the same kind of information, right? We're seeing it looks hot at the is that the best frame? Right about, that's probably a good one. So it's hot on the top, hot on the bottom. Center is a little dark. It's just not emitting. And that's the way I'm looking at this, right? All of the cameras are just basically sensors, right? Every camera has a sensor in it, and that's the primary thing that a camera has, right? It's like the film, right? Its objective is to absorb photons coming through the lens and then convert that into digital output. And at some point I could probably go into it where it's like there's 3 different types of pixels on the sensor. Each one of them can register between a 0 and a 255 for a luminosity, so it's basically a power. So you can see how much color, right? Because it's red, green, and blue. That's a little bit too detailed for what I want to do right here, but cameras are designed, the sensors are designed to pick up photons, and the photons come in different frequencies, and the frequencies are either captured in the red spectrum, the blue spectrum, or the green spectrum. Okay, so most of what's in here is going to be on probably the longer wavelength because it's more orange in scale, so it's going to be a slower vibration of the photon. And maybe this is too detailed, but I think this is important information so we understand what we're looking at here, because we're looking at an object that is emitting energy. And that's, when it comes down to it, that's what it is. It's emitting energy. And the energy is in the form of electromagnetic radiation, light. This right here is probably the best frame. I think this captures the entirety of what this object is. We have something in the center that is not, it's a different color. It's like almost like a gray green. There's a red kind of hue surrounding it. And then outside of that is what I'm going to just call plasma, because I don't know what it is. And it's jiggling so much around that to me, it reminds me of just, excited energy that has, it's not really attached to anything specific, but it's kind of on the outside of it. So this is, I think this is the actual unit, right? And maybe it's more like the object that I looked at that was the UAP that was flying above that one river, the last post I did, where I actually created a 3D model of it. We could be looking at, and because this is shot almost straight up from the bottom, we could be just looking at like the bottom of something like this, and the top, if you saw it, just look like this, right? It would just be, a metallic round thing or whatever, something kind of coated in plasma. But I think we're looking at something like this. And I don't know, just because the altitude's too high and we're using little tiny sensors, there could be a couple of engine pods in here, right, that we just can't pick up because we just don't have the resolution. But to me, I think we're looking at something that looks kind of like this, right? I can't confirm it because there's just not enough data in this stream. But man, I think we're looking up the butt of another craft, and we're actually seeing. It's too bad when he zoomed in, it didn't stay focused. This is out of focus. We are seeing up the butt inside of a craft. Let's see if we can get a frame here. Every time, right? There's something here in the middle that's just devoid of. It's not emitting energy. No electrons, or not electrons, no photons. And that's just what we got. So, yeah, this one hits a little close to home. This is only about a couple miles north of us. And it was a daylight capture, which was something unique. Clearly energetic. No, I don't see any wings. The way it's moving doesn't seem to have kinetic thrust, right? It's not blowing air to move around. At least that's not the impression I get just looking at it move. It's moving too smooth. It's at altitude. I don't know. I'm just going to keep doing this because every time I do one, I learn a little bit more. And again, like I'm saying, sometimes you get there's some similarities. Like this one, I think is kind of similar to this. So maybe it's a similar craft that's flying above, and maybe because it's just moving in a certain direction, there's a little bit more, emission on the front and the back of it. I don't know, but we just have to keep gathering data. Just keep getting data. So if you're out there and you're looking to record something like this, and if you have an iPhone, I think 14 or 15, if you can do ProRes, please do that and keep it as still as possible so we can get as much data as possible. Okay, that's all I got for this one. Thanks for watching.